Welcome to All Set for Sunday, a podcast for busy and distracted Catholics to be a little more prepared for Sunday Mass. My name is Scott Williams. My co-host is Jeff Traylor. What's up, bud?
Hey, man, we're back.
We're back.
I think we're recording.
Yes.
We're in the stewed.
Back in the stewed.
Back on video.
Yeah, it feels good to be home base.
Yeah, we got this nice little chair set up here. Like, this is nice.
Yeah, I don't know if this will last, but it'll be today.
Yeah, every week. Well, yeah, you're a fidgeter, so
yeah.
Every week will look a little different.
Well, if our guest Father Christian came to the stewed for this, we'd have to figure out a different situation because we only have two of these blue chairs.
That's the point.
I would be really sad because I like the look of those chairs.
They're nice chairs. They are.
Maybe one of you could sit on the floor.
I'll do that.
Crisscross applesauce.
Yes.
You've been here before. You did a blessing on Sweet
I
Day.
really liked when I came up. I wish I could figure it out how to get up there again because it's more fun to do it in person, but it's also fun to do on Zoom, so we'll have fun.
Now, if you get assigned something, this is not getting into dumb questions, but you're a Benedictine monk, right?
That is true.
You're currently assigned at a parish.
True.
Do you get assigned to that parish by the archabbot or the archbishop? How does that work?
Yes.
Actually, bishop, because that's not Indianapolis.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
The bishop requests help. The archabbot says, here's who I would like to give you. And then the bishop says, okay, I am bringing you in and naming you in this role.
That is usually how it happens.
But he would have the right to say, no, archabbot, I don't want that one. Give me another.
Yeah. So either person can pull me from my assignment at either time. Okay. So if at any time the bishop is displeased, he can put an end to my being there. The abbot
an aggressive way to say that.
I think the abbot can also call me home, but they would have to kind of talk to each other about it. The bishop can't send me to a new parish without the abbot's okay.
Gotcha.
Anyway, it is kind of a two-headed monster that you're working with, and I mean that word very literally. Monster.
I was going to say you called them monsters. That's great.
No, it's good. It's good.
Anyways, I was trying to figure out a way to plot to get you closer to Indianapolis, but
I wouldn't. I'm not counting on that anytime soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, never mind then.
Okay, that was a diversion. A
digression. We'll have to develop our satellite office in the South at some point.
Well, we did have plans to go visit Father Christian, and then we had some things come up with work, and so we couldn't go down that day. But someday we'll get down there to St. Joseph's and
we'll be happy to welcome you when you do.
Yeah, and see Lexi. Mostly, I just want to come see Lexi.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
good.
All right,
should be happy to see you.
Oh, ready for the 2-minute drill?
I am. All right, it is. First off, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Having Merry Christmas season. We are celebrating the solemnity of the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Love it.
Holy Family. Gotta be excited. These readings are it's full of heaters. Just like there's just so many great readings, and there's options.
Yeah.
The first reading, the response, and the second reading. But
this is kind of a little bit of a game right now because I know which readings I kind of prepared for, but I have no idea which ones you're going to read. So let's go. And
I decided I was just going to briefly cover them all because
really,
because most of them I may not get into the nitty gritty like I usually do the depth.
Yeah,
but mostly these are such well known stories that you can just really hit the main pieces. So
2 minutes. I'm timing. Go.
Not how it works.
The first reading is Sirach, comes from Sirach chapter 3. So the first option for the first reading, and it starts off. This is it's at least something that stuck out to me that I remembered, that God sets a father in honor over his children, and a mother's authority he confers. So it's really hitting on this role of the parent and these roles here. The second option is Genesis 15, and here we see when the Lord takes note that Sarah has been barren, and says that he decides that he's going to go ahead and give her a child, and she gets pregnant and bears Abraham a son named Isaac. kind of a big deal, kind of a big story. The responsorial psalm, then we have two responsorial psalms. I would put them both like, I don't think they're either are mumblers, but they probably go in my meh category, but really beautiful psalms either way. One is
Mess.
blessed are those who fear the Lord and walk in his ways. And the other is the Lord remembers his covenant forever. So both solid.
Yeah, not bangers.
Nah. The second readings, the second reading comes from Colossians. And also then there's two of these, and this one has a short form and a long form. But mostly I went with the long form because this is one of the more famous, I think, wedding readings that you hear. The wives, be subordinate to your husbands as is proper in the Lord, and husbands, love your wives and avoid any bitterness towards them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this is pleasing, blah blah blah. So that's a reading we are like you hear at weddings, or at least like you hear people talk about as a wedding reading.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah, blah blah blah. Wow, yeah. A little bit redundant again, but whatever. And then the second reading comes from Hebrews. And here, we're calling back because Isaac, we've just heard about in the first reading, Sarah bearing Abraham a son, and his name was Isaac. And here we see Abraham being put to the test and being asked to sacrifice Isaac, and then all of a sudden coming in and saying, "No, wait, is that what I'm saying? No, we just hear, yeah, he offered up Isaac. Yeah, there you go. All right. Gospel reading then. The gospel is Luke chapter 2, 22 to 40. Are we going short form or long form, Father? Short? Always. I like this guy. When the days were completed for their purification, according to the law of Moses, they took him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. Let me find the brackets again. When they had fulfilled all the prescription of the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own town of Nazareth. The child grew up, became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of grace was upon him. Did I get that right? Is that all it is? Yeah, I think so.
That was really short. I didn't realize.
It's like two sentences.
You said 18 verses. The short verse must have had like 3 verses.
Short form is 2, 22, and 39 to 40.
Oh yeah, that's a drastic difference between the.
You want me to go back and do the long form?
Well, I'm trying to see what we missed.
Maybe there's a lot.
let's hear the long one.
Okay. I'm not culpable now for going over 2 minutes because Father Christian misfired.
Yes.
Oh, I thought the 2 minutes included everything before the gospel.
Sure. When the days were completed for their purification, according to the law of Moses, they took him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. Just as it was written in the law of the Lord, every male that opens the womb shall be consecrated to the Lord, and to offer sacrifice a pair of turtle doves and 2 pigeons in accordance with the dictate in the law of the Lord. Now there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon. That man was righteous and devout, awaiting the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was upon him. It had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he should not see death before he had seen Christ the Lord. He came to the Spirit in the temple, and when the parents brought in the child of Jesus to perform the custom in the law in regard to him, he took into his arms and blessed God, saying, "Now, Master, you may let your servant go in peace, according to your word. For my eyes have seen your salvation, from which you prepared in sight of all the peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, and glory for your people Israel." The child's father and mother were amazed at what was said about him. And Simeon blessed them and said to Mary, his mother, "Behold, this child is destined for the fall and the rise of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be contradicted. And you yourself a sword will pierce, so that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed." There was also a prophetess named Anna, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was advanced in years, having lived 7 years with her husband after her marriage, and then as a widow until she was 84. She never left the temple, but worshipped night and day with fasting and prayer. And coming forward at that very time, she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were awaiting redemption of Israel. When they had fulfilled all the prescriptions of the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own town of Nazareth. The child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom and favor, and the favor of God was upon him.
Wow. That was a long one.
Yeah, but there was a
Yeah.
lot we missed in there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Father Christian, did
Can
Jeff
you still hear me? I
Yeah,
adjusted my mic, so I didn't want to get lost.
you sound great.
That was very good. I was very impressed with your 2-minute drill, and it's a long gospel. But yeah, there's kind of a drastic difference between those two gospels, because you get Simeon and Anna.
You're like the first two people to ever recognize the presence of the Lord. We just skipped that over.
I know. You get Simeon and Anna, and they're a couple of my favorites. So I'm glad we got them. Yeah. I hadn't noticed, when I was going over the readings, I hadn't noticed what was in the short version. I didn't realize it was going to be that short. So
I know, as I was reading it, I was like, I have to have missed something here. But
That's it.
So good.
All right,
Yeah.
Father, what are you preaching on this weekend?
Well, it's the Feast of the Holy Family, and I always think that the Feast of the Holy Family is it's a good time to remind people of I think the domestic, what we call the domestic church, is a teaching that we have, that every family is the church's community and an experience and a way of participating in the church's community and mission. And so when that people who are living in the context of family can really live out the full vocation of Christians, to and grow in holiness and grow in sanctity. So I think that's where I'm going to end up. I want to talk to kind of before that just about how the readings really, they point us to just the crucial importance of the family and God's plan of salvation. It's really striking, how important the family is to God's plan of salvation. We maybe think a lot about individuals that the Lord raises up and works through. I think it's also kind of a particular American tendency to look a lot at individuals. We have a lot of statues of individuals, but we have less kind of statues of families. But the family in the Bible is kind of looking large. It's really amazing. It starts with Adam and Eve. That's a family. Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve. Noah, Noah's family, Abraham, and his family, and then all of Israel is a kind of family, really, because they're all descendants of Abraham, so they're all related. God's working the whole thing. He's working through a family. It's really amazing. So when we get to Jesus, there's Mary and Joseph, that's his family, but also, he's actually part of this bigger family of Israel that God has been working through, over the course of centuries. So the family is just really crucial to God's plan. And so I kind of just want people to pause for a minute and recognize the importance of that, the significance of it. I think sometimes in the church, or historically, maybe we've given the impression that holiness is something you attain despite marriage and family rather than through it. And so
Say that again.
So I think sometimes during our Christian tradition, because celibacy is introduced in a very powerful way with the life of Christ and with Paul, celibacy is a very important witness, and it was very important actually for making family, kind of putting family in its right perspective and in its right place, because family is actually something that can become an idol to people. And so celibacy is an important sign and witness that family, there are, in fact, more important things. um, but I think sometimes during our tradition and our history, sometimes people have kind of gotten the message that, like, if you wanted to be really holy, you would not be in a family. You would join a religious order. You would become a priest.
Mhm.
And if they did get married and have a family, that they would become saints, maybe despite that fact. I think the fact that you might be looking at me like a little bit cross-eyed right now, like that seems like a really strange idea, is actually a sign to me of how far we've come. Because I think 100 years ago, if I said something like that, a lot of people would have been shaking their heads yes. Because that was kind of a pervasive message that the really holy thing to do was to become a priest or become a religious. And that if you got married, marriage would be a distraction. And so you had to, if you became a saint, it was sort of despite the fact that you were in the context of a family, rather than through that fact. And that's kind of what I want to point people to is actually it for the people. When you're called to that vocation, you are made a saint, not despite marriage and family, but through it, precisely through it. Yeah.
Is there anybody that you can think of that is doing the whole domestic church thing in an extraordinary way, and what are they doing that kind of stands out to you?
Well, I can certainly think of examples. I don't know that, it's not like there's famous people that if I said their names, your listeners would know who I was talking about. But,
The Trailer family, ever heard of them?
When I think of people who are doing the domestic church thing well, I think they are, can I come at that from two different angles? Let me come at it from two different angles. So
let's start with the first one.
All right. The first angle would
45
be
degrees.
That by baptism, we're called to live as priest, prophet, and king. And so the context of marriage family becomes a context in which to live out that baptismal call through and with the help of the graces of marriage. But actually, your kids they're living the domestic church too, and they're not married, right? So the domestic church is not just about married people. It's about all the baptized who are living in that familial context, I would say. And so the priest, prophet, and king motif in the family would be, I see people, in my parish who they celebrate the liturgical year really well in their family. They have special treats on Sundays. They bring out different colors for the different seasons of the year. They have a place in their home that is maybe arranged like as a place of prayer and worship, and they decorate in a certain way for this liturgical season. In a way, everybody does that at Christmas. Like they put the tree in the corner of their room and they have a creche. I mean, that's a shrine, right? That is a literal shrine. The Christmas tree with a nativity scene, that's a shrine. But to do that actually through the year with different kind of themes and motifs. I would say another thing in terms of the prophet is just families where people feel they can actually share their faith. They can talk about their faith. They can talk about Jesus. They can not only pray together, but ask questions about God to each other, ask questions to about God to their parents. So I think that is all a way in which I see people living the domestic church well. And then the king is the one who orders things rightly. And so it's a question of, is the family, is the home ordered to love and justice? And what kind of life of virtue is flourishing among the family? So if I see a family that is praying together, sharing their faith and living a life of virtue, that's the domestic church. So that's the one angle I would come at it from. And that actually, I didn't realize this before I started, but that's a kind of a good angle for, I think, if you're a kid, or if you're and maybe not one of the parents, but you can think of the domestic church through that lens. Like, this is my place to be priest, prophet, and king. It doesn't mean I'm not going to take that priest, prophet, and king elsewhere, to school or to work, but I'm going to do it here. And it can be a both and this could be the place where I'm really built up and fed in that identity, and then take it out. The other angle I would come at it would be more specific to parents, and what does it mean to be a parent? A parent is really two things. It's giving life and raising life. So when we look at canon law, or even the promises that you make when you get married, it's about openness to life, but also to raising the life. And so we can think about that in terms of the natural virtue, or just like the natural level, like you're giving life, and then go back into caveman ethics, like you protect your child from the bear, you teach him to feed himself, you give him food. So that's raising the life. You give the life, and then you help the child to thrive and survive. But there's a supernatural kind of parallel, right? So to be a parent is to give your child supernatural life by, first of all, by bringing them to be baptized, but then also by imparting to them the gift of faith. And then raising the life of grace, which you would do by protecting your child from, you could say, spiritual threats, evil, ugliness, trying to keep that stuff out of the garden. And then as the child gets older, helping them learn and discern how to do that for themselves. Providing for your child by praying for them, providing for them by giving them a kind of catechesis or religious education, guiding them and helping them grow in wisdom, helping them learn their own vocation that they can embrace and respond to. And so that they, in fact, grow up to be not just an adult, but a saint. And so that's what I would say then becomes really the work of parenting. So those are maybe the aspect of the domestic church for the parents. And then you have the child, I mentioned, with priest, prophet, and king. And then you could also look at it, I'm going to throw in a third thing, specifically in terms of the couple, which is their relationship to each other and being domestic church to each other, which is, I think, really awesome, because you are really being a sacramental sign of God's love to your spouse. We think about God's love for the chosen people. He chose them, right? It's an election. He chose them. Paul VI said that married love is free, faithful, fruitful, and what else? What did I forget? Free, faithful, fruitful, and full, right? So that's married love, but that's also God's love. It's free, faithful, fruitful, and full. And so by giving your love to your spouse in that way, you're actually giving them a sign of how much God loves them. I think that's awesome. So those are maybe three ways to come at the whole idea of the domestic church. Obviously, I'm not going to say all that in my homily because it's too much.
I don't know. It was pretty good. I was like sitting there towards the end of that, and I was like, we haven't really spoken in a long time. And then I was like, and then I realized I was like, Scott and I were both just like, so tell us more. Like, this is just good stuff. Maybe you should just say all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
just play the podcast for your homily.
Hey guys, I've brothers and sisters, I don't really feel like preaching today, so I'm just gonna hit play on this podcast.
Did I nail this podcast earlier this week? I'm just I'll just play this on my phone here. I'll just hold it to the microphone.
Yeah.
Don't play this part though.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm going.
All right. Well, I like that. I think you did a good job. Anything else?
No, not that I know. I mean, I just
I don't know if you
think
could
it's
do it any
beautiful.
better than that.
Yeah, I know. I think it's beautiful. I mean, I do think there is a piece you talked about it, but like, and I've heard, and Scott and I, we've talked about this on the podcast before. Like, you don't see a lot of, there's not a lot of married couple saints, or even saints that like, there are a lot of saints, I think, more saints out there, I think, that were married than we realize, but like, then that part of their life never gets talked about.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
That's
I'm,
not
And
the
like, that's too
celebrated part.
bad.
I'm sure
Yeah.
heaven is full of them, but for whatever
Yes.
reason, it doesn't make it into the
Right.
statues or the litanies. So
Yeah. Well, I think in a lot of situations, right, it is living out that maxim, do small things with great love. You know, I think that's so often really the vocation in family, small things with great love. So these are not things that are really flashy or things that are going to get a lot of attention. Of course, back in the Middle Ages, you know, they did have a kind of idea of the royal family as something that everybody was like looking at and pointing to and celebrating, and you do have some of these medieval royal saints, which is interesting, you know, and they're married, but it's often not the case that their spouse is also canonized. So, but sometimes they are. Yeah, like is it Ferdinand and Isabella? Are they both canonized? Anyway, there may be a couple, but
there's like the Louis and
recent
Zelly of
years
the
we
world.
have
But
recently we have like Louis and Zelly, or Luis and Zelly Martin, and then there's an Italian couple whose names I can never get right, but and their actual feast day is their wedding anniversary, but this is a very kind of modern phenomenon.
Mhm.
It's pretty new
I
for
also,
ordinary people to be canonized for being married.
yeah, I think there's also like a practical side of, like, this is where my logic brain goes, is like, so many saints that we recognize, like, it's because like their life's work, oftentimes like the large majority of public ministry and work that they were doing, right, was focused totally and completely on others, so they were more visible in those actions.
Yeah,
Whereas like married couple, like by nature, they were like raising families and trying to
exactly.
like, and they had jobs and they had
Right.
like you said, like they may not take out like the religious vocation side, like they just, their vocation was not necessarily a public ministry in
Yeah,
itself. Their
for
vocation
sure.
was more private. But a saint, we know, is like somebody who, you know, someone who is in heaven.
Yeah.
And again, like, I'm
Yeah,
sure
for sure. There are
people,
lots there for
it's
sure.
probably
For
the
sure.
reverse, right? Like
Yeah.
it's more rare that, yeah.
Yeah. I know there's that passage in C.S. Lewis book, The Great Divorce, where they're like up in heaven and there's this big, like amazing parade or celebration going on. And there's this guy who's kind of new there and he's like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, well, somebody has just arrived, you know, from your side. In other words, somebody who just died. And they're very famous up here, but they're not famous down below, you know.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, yeah. And so like everybody was just going crazy because this person had come to heaven, and now all the people in heaven were like, this guy's the bomb, like this guy's amazing, or you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's a huge celebrity in heaven. But
I think we
That's
should just
awesome.
find some random guy that was on parish council like 50 years ago, he and his wife, and
Start a
take it to
concert
the
band.
bishop and do this guy was on parish council for 20 years. I
That, if
promise that
that's not
yeah.
sainthood,
Yeah.
I don't know what
I don't
is.
either.
Please, let's declare him servant of God.
Oh, that's great. All right.
All right. They'd probably change this many diapers and
Yeah. Yeah, that's
just
that
all
sort of thing's gotta have you in there, right? Like,
uh
If that's the criteria, I'm in big trouble.
I was gonna say, have you ever changed it? Should we start into dumb questions?
yeah.
Christian, have you ever changed a diaper?
I have, yeah, yeah. I have 8 nieces and nephews, and so and they were all like born and really they were babies when I was before I ever joined the monastery. So I was a babysitter, and you know, I did change some diapers back in those days.
Listen, I have some good friends that her dad, the grandfather of these kids, has never changed a diaper in his life.
Wow.
Never changed his own kids' diapers. Has never changed. Like, at a certain point with his grandkids, he was like willing, but he was like, I mean, I got a streak going here. Like, I made it this far. I can say I never did this. Like, yeah.
No,
Anyway.
yeah. I think that was definitely a kind of generational thing, and I'm not that old.
It's like the opposite of chalices, not calluses. Calluses, not poop.
Oh, gross.
These hands are for.
Oh goodness.
All right, Father Christian, we're done talking about the moon. I think we started that conversation with you, maybe.
Oh no, I wasn't the first person.
Yeah.
Because
No.
I had surprised you.
You're the
by
first
saying-
yes.
No, I was a no.
He was a
Oh.
hard no, remember?
That was a
And then
hard
it talks
no.
about he was thinking of one of the monks that he wanted to see.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It was whoever it was, Emily, our wonderful Emily, who like edits the podcast and posts it.
Yeah.
She was like listening, and she goes like, "I know that monk. I also want to see him in a spacesuit." But we have another question. We had a user who submitted a listener who he's using and abusing the spot by listening to this podcast.
Please do.
He submitted the question. He was just talking about how he enjoys our familiarity with our priest friends and stuff, and that was recommending that we talk a little bit about, like, in the world of people have this image of priests and they think that you're just a sacrament machine, and that's what you do. You just turn out sacraments and then sit around and wait for people to come to spiritual direction or something like that, and like that's all priests do. But the question was, what, like, he was saying we should talk to more people about what you do in your free time, like if you have free time, when you have free time, what are your hobbies? What are things that you like to do, even if you don't get to do them very often? Like, what are, from the real side, the non sacraments machine, Father Christian?
Well, like on a daily basis, like what do I do when, it's finally time to like take off my shoes?
Sure.
I'm learning Spanish. So I'm working on that.
That's awesome.
I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I drop. Oh, all set for Sunday. Yeah, that's definitely.
Oh, AS4S. Nice.
So what else do I do? Probably I'm going to sound like a really boring person. I listen to music. I really like listening to music. I've made like playlists for all the liturgical seasons, and I made playlists for different road trips I wanted to take. So I have fun doing that. And
are you on Spotify? Can people like subscribe to your playlist?
They can, yeah. Yeah.
What is it?
It's FCOSB.
FCOSB.
Yeah.
FCOSB.
Yeah.
I am sure gonna follow these. This is exciting.
So I kind of take a lot of maybe some songs that you wouldn't hear in church, but that have some kind of spiritual meaning as far as I'm concerned. Stuff from country, blues, some rock, some folk. And that kind of remind me of the liturgical season, and I make playlists of them. I've been working on that. I got into this back in 2020 because I was like, I started fantasizing about road trips that I couldn't take, and so I made playlists for basically every state in the country. And
this is awesome. This is so great.
So that's what I did. But
Scott's about to take a road trip. You should play
every state. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna and then that kind of takes me, what else do I do? I really do love to travel. So that's obviously not something I do every day, but in terms of like what do I do in my spare, like what do I consider like normal human things that I enjoy doing? I love to travel. I have my dog too, and I play with my dog. So those are some of my things that I do.
What's your next trip you have scheduled?
Because
if I know anything about people who love to travel, it's that they always have a next trip planned.
I do. I always have one ready to go before. So I have a goal to visit all 50 states by the time I'm 50, and I'm getting very close, both in age and number of states. So, so next summer I'm going to South Dakota and North Dakota. And then the summer after that, I will go to Montana and Idaho, and I will have all 50 states, and I will be 50.
You couldn't make that one trip? Isn't that kind of a straight shot?
It would probably take longer than I want to take. I want to take time.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Now here's the real question. What is the criteria for you checking off the state?
Is it just literally be in
Wait,
it?
did we not talk about this before? I'm having deja vu.
I mean, perhaps.
Yeah, I have to be in
I have it by like RV travel. There's a criteria. You have to spend the night, at least one night, in a campground
Oh,
in that state.
well, then I have been to like 2 states.
Well, you've not traveled in
Right. Like if you just drive through a state, do you count that?
I have to get out of the car.
Out of the car. Okay.
Yeah, I have to have my feet have to touch the ground. But I will say that I have spent the night in all of the states that I have visited, except one,
Which one?
New Jersey.
Well,
nobody wants to stay in
you're good.
That's fine.
But I did get gas in New Jersey.
Basically,
did you get it, or did somebody else pump it
Well,
for
see,
you?
it's a cultural experience.
I did that.
Yes, it's a cultural experience, and therefore I was in New Jersey.
And you got out of the car too.
I didn't. No, well, I did. Yeah, I did. I had to have my feet touch the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got gas. I had somebody pump my gas. Then I
Nice.
probably went in and bought a Mountain Dew or something.
What's that all about?
It's a boosting the economy thing. It's a requirement that somebody else pump your gas because it gets jobs for kids.
Yeah.
Like young people.
Interesting.
There's one other state that does that, and I don't remember who.
It kind of freaked me out. I didn't know, like,
I don't remember that anywhere else.
I thought like Pacific Northwest somewhere, maybe.
It sounds like something they would do, but
Right?
I don't remember
that. When you go to Idaho, you should make it a point to go to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Oh yeah, that's where I'm going.
Oh, that's in the world of Scott and I's origin story. It's not where we met, but it might be where we fell in love. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
The two of us went to a conference there, and
Awesome.
we stayed maybe the most romantic hotel room I've ever stayed in my life. But it happened to be the two of us, and
remote power shades,
a sunken living room.
Wow.
And we would sit in robes and drink coffee in the morning.
that he wants to die for.
And if anyone,
I'm talking about the mountains, not Jeff.
No, the lake. If anyone ever thought that like Scott and the whole thing was like fake between Scott and I, nope, that's 100% real story.
I believe it. Now,
Yeah.
can you say what the conference was?
It was the National Federation for Catholic Youth Ministry, their annual membership meeting.
Yeah, it was
They have
in
a
Idaho.
requirement in their bylaws that it moves time zones or I don't know if it's still like that or not, but Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, there was a hotel that was owned by some
Catholic family.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed because there was a few years there where I was going to those conferences, but that didn't happen at that time. So
too bad you weren't there.
Yeah, no, I would like to go, but it's coming. That's my 2025 trip.
Nice. It'll be beautiful. You'll be happy. Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
When's 50?
2025.
Oh, okay.
Is the trip before you turn 50?
No, it is not. I'm not going to make it.
Doesn't count.
I look, I had it all planned out. COVID wiped out a year. I couldn't make it up. So I could do a rush job next summer, but I'd rather just like take the trips I had hoped to take.
That's fair.
Do you guys do birthday parties at the monastery?
No.
Okay. 50th?
No. Do you do like ordination parties?
Do you guys celebrate it? What do you celebrate?
There's a very famous story about
the Eucharist.
Actually, one of our abbots, before he was abbot, he went and asked, if he could have permission to go out to dinner with some friends on his birthday. And the abbot, who was abbot at that time, said, well, we don't celebrate birthdays in the monastery. He said, that's why I want to go out.
Yeah, I know.
So Yeah.
That's awesome.
All
Yeah.
right, Father, thank you so much for yet another enjoyable episode on All Set for Sunday.
My pleasure. I hope we can do the next one in person.
Please.
Yes.
Okay.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.